All right, Paul, I just wanted to share this video with you, and I'll shoot you out a proposal associated with it. The idea again is let's use that frac database to help us forecast what's coming down the pipe. And when I look at the design side of it here, I've got I built that site. Let me just see, what did I call it? Kind of Big Molly. And so we were assuming that, coming up the highway here, we would distribute from Big Molly whatever their products are. It could be all your product sets. When we look at, well, what areas are we servicing, what we want to do is we want to break it down by field, and then we can see there's multiple types of fields, and we can see what percentage kind of each one of these fields in that particular service area that we're looking at would be represented. And then when we look at that over here, what I did is I said, okay, well, let's look at the usage, the sand usage, and the propionate by sand, and then by resin coated, and then ceramic coated. And then I just came in here and I said, well, let's break it out by field. So I've got that field K-Bob listed, and then when we look at K-Bob, it's a good example for us. What we would do, and something that might be better to explain it in person, but we build a field, we build a database object, an entry into the table that's essentially K-Bob. So when we get any new well licenses, the first thing we do is we look at it and we say, well, what field is this in? And then we see it's in K-Bob. The next thing that we do is in the table that we're building, associated with K-Bob, we've got a couple different entries. One is it crude oil or is it gas? And then the second is it the Montney or the Duvernay, or there's also the Gathering, so there's kind of but mostly it's Montney, Duvernay. And then what happens, and then you can see here when we look at, and then we look at it, well, what is the projected depth? And we look at some averages there. What we can see is the amount of sand used in this particular area when it's crude oil is X, and then when it's gas, it's considerably larger. So smaller for crude, larger for gas, smaller for crude, larger for gas, smaller for crude, larger for gas. So we're pretty consistent, and then we'll be able to work out the average, based on if it's X amount of feet, projected depth, what is the average amount that we would use. So we're not going to get the exact amount, obviously, but we're going to get as close as we can. So that database table is existing. So we'll have in your database K-Bob, gas or oil, and then when it's oil, a Montney and a Duvernay. When it's gas, a Montney and a Duvernay. Kind of a general projected depth, and then what the estimated sand usage would be. So that's sitting in the database table. And then when we look at the well license, I can see here I just built a table, or I built a report that said, give me the well licenses last 128 days that haven't been drilled. And then what we see here, let's look at the K-Bob. I would say that in that area, we would then query the table and say, okay, we've got K-Bob, we've got gas, we've got Duvernay, here's the projected depth. And then it will auto-populate our projected numbers here based on what are the total sand being used, what's the resin, and what's the ceramic. So now when we come in and we build a report and we say to ourselves, I want to look at essentially this area that we're focusing on. I want to look at all the well licenses, and I want to see all the amount of projected sand usage that is by each one of these accounts in that particular area. So now we've got a forecast, and this is all happening dynamically on that side of it. And then when I'm a salesperson and I look at this, again, when I'm looking at allocating my time, and we come down here and I don't have, so we've got gas, crude, I could be saying that, the crude oil ones are less, the gas are higher. This guy has a field, this guy has this guy's a pad, this guy's a pad. So now the salesperson can go in there, again, with the end in mind, how much sand do I think they're going to require on that side of it? And then when we call them up, We can talk to them about some of the different potential results that we see. We can specifically talk to them about the logistics of moving that particular amount of sand associated with it. So I'll send you out a proposal on what that would look like to formulate that. Again, the model, we would open it up and make it dynamic enough that you would be able to make some adjustments to it. It wouldn't just be in these areas here. We would look at all of them, but we can see definitely, the areas that you have your sand today are the areas where we're going to be looking at the majority of the, the majority of the usage of the products that you're selling. So hopefully that is clear, and then we can set up a call to talk.